Warning! The following contains nothing but spoilers to Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney Dual Destinies. 7 years ago, Athena Cykes, a robotics and psychology expert, was murdered in her lab. The accused was her apprentice, Simon Blackquill, and the evidence against him was airtight. Everyone in court was convinced. Everyone, that is, except for the victim's daughter, Athena Cykes. On the witness stand, she cried out in protest that he didn't do it. But without any proof, her words fell on deaf ears. As she grew up, Athena vowed to become a lawyer and studied analytical psychology so that she could one day clear Simon's name. After quite a few years, the Ace Attorney series finally makes it to the 3DS with Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney Dual Destinies. Thanks to the improved technology, animated character models take the place of the 2D sprites we've become familiar with. But fortunately, they keep much of the same body language. These graphical upgrades have had one major impact on the gameplay. We now get a three-dimensional view of the murder scene, making it much easier to understand what the hell happened. Even before its release, the anime cutscenes in the trailer made one thing clear. Don't worry, we fixed Phoenix Wright. Hey look, he's got his badge back! But even though a lot of the previous game was swept under the rug, Dual Destinies kept and even improved Apollo Justice. All that nonsense involving the Gramarye magicians is never referenced, and instead we learn about what his life was like in an orphanage. What's more, he actually has quite a few awesome moments outside of his lawyer duties. But even though we play as Phoenix Wright and Apollo Justice, this time the story is centered around our newest and third playable defense attorney, Athena Cykes. Just like her coworkers, Athena also has a special ability, some sort of super empathy that for once is not some incredible trait that people are feuding over. Thanks to her robot companion widget, you, the player, get to play Find the Contradictory Emotion. Just like the Cyclops, this game mechanic is also used to amplify the drama in the story, usually indicating a grandiose revelation. The prosecutor this time around is the Bushido-inspired Simon Blackquill, who happens to be an inmate. The reasons for why the hell a convicted murderer gets to be prosecutor are explained much later on. But basically, Simon is meant to be a foil to Athena Cykes. While she wears her emotions on her sleeves, he is aloof and stoic. While Athena uses empathy to understand people, Simon uses psychological persuasion to subtly manipulate those around him. Overall, Simon Blackquill is a badass. He's got his trademark silence to go along with his objection, and he stands backwards because he can. Simon's character follows the more classic style of starting off antagonistic before turning out to be one of the good guys. Although it's not entirely clear why he was so confrontational to begin with. Since this game plays non-chronologically, I'm going to be covering the cases in the order they appear in the storyline, which means we begin with Case 2, the Monstrous Turnabout. In a throwback to the previous game, Apollo is dragged along with Trucy while she visits her superstitious friend Jinxie Tenma in a small, remote Japanese-style village. This small village near Los Angeles celebrates yokai spirit monsters and WWE. Yeah, this is the case that almost abandons the pretense that this takes place in America. But Janet Shu, head of localization for most of the Ace Attorney games, has a good explanation. Now on that note, I've got some burgers to enjoy. But of course, just like any casual outing with our main characters, it isn't long before a murder happens, and in perhaps another reference to the original game, we get to see the killer do his thing. Okay, sure, the Ace Attorney series have always been more about how the murder was committed, but is this really necessary? Aside from blatantly telling us that Florent Lebel is the bad guy, this is a pretty solid case. The defendant, Jinxie's father Damien, is a drastic improvement over the previous game's defendants, and for a while it almost seems like he really is guilty. This is because, as heartbreaking as it is for her to admit, Jinxie witnessed her father confess to the crime. The solution to this contradiction is elegantly simple, and a good example of what the Ace Attorney series has always excelled at. For this part of the game, Athena Cykes plays the role of assistant, and for the first time in the series, this actually makes sense because she's a lawyer in training. Not only that, but it works as a great setup for Case 3, turnabout high school slice-of-life romance drama anime. Yep, it's murder at the famous legal academy, so get ready for an extravaganza of love confessions, juicy gossip, overzealous after-school clubs, and of course, massive declarations of friendship!
And to think, I should have known better than to doubt my best friends.
As for the plot itself, the murder was emulating a mock trial performed by the students at the academy, and the accused is Juniper Woods, Athena's childhood friend. As you can probably tell, this is the case where we get to play as Athena, and it's built up perfectly.
Hold it! Junie! I've decided. I'm going to defend you. I'll fight with everything I've got.
Although she's not very experienced, Athena proves herself capable of making some of the most outlandish bluffs, staying strong in the face of insurmountable evidence, and, after overcoming her own demons, winning the case by dressing up like a statue of Phoenix Wright. While this case does have some of the silliest contradictions, it does have an enjoyable cast. Hugh, Robin, and Juniper are each meant to mirror Phoenix, Apollo, and Athena, both in color scheme and in personality. Hugh's absurd bluffing techniques should seem very familiar. Robin's excitement and enthusiasm is on par with Apollo's cords of steel, and Athena, just like her friend Juniper, also finds herself accused of murder. We've even got a few cameo characters, and the most flagrant Metal Gear Solid reference I've ever seen in a video game. Then we have Case 4, which exists entirely for the sake of setting up the grand finale. Geez, I'm getting a real sense of deja vu here. Anyways, this time it's murder at a space station, and man, does the defendant require patience. I guess lethargic astronaut works for a character, but at this point, you, the player, already know what's about to happen. This is, of course, the case that was interrupted by an explosion shown at the beginning of the game. Now, chronologically, we arrive at case number 1, where Juniper stands trial for the bombing. Apollo is supposed to defend, but he's injured, so it's up to Athena Cykes to take over the reins. Until she fails, allowing for Phoenix Wright to make his grand return for the fans.
Objection! Why, it's you!
Now wait a second. If you consider the order of events, there's a massive contradiction here. Athena Cykes, who just managed to defeat Professor Means and go toe-to-toe with legendary prosecutor Simon Blackquill, now has to be explained how a contradiction works and gets completely schooled by freaking Winston Payne's brother? What? But thankfully, Phoenix Wright is here to save the day, and our previous trial that got interrupted can now conclude. In what is probably a surprise to absolutely nobody, our lethargic astronaut client is declared not guilty because the culprit turns out to be Athena Cykes. Oh, and apparently she slept over at the Space Center the night of the murder. Oh, and she lived there when she was a kid. Oh, and that murder she witnessed when she was a child, that happened there too. Geez, Athena, you don't think you should mention this stuff, maybe? Thus bringing us to Case 5, the grand finale, where Aura Blackquill puts into motion her ridiculous plan to get her brother Simon Blackquill out of prison before his execution by holding a whole group of people hostage in order to force a retrial. This ridiculous situation prompts the grand return of Chief Prosecutor Miles Edgeworth. But Phoenix will not be defending Simon, as Aura Blackquill accuses Athena Cykes of the crime of killing her own mother 7 years ago. Given what we know, and given Athena's terrified reaction, it's actually plausible that she's the murderer, especially when... Hold it! From this point forward, I will be discussing massive spoilers from all the prior games in the series. If you have not played all of these games, stop the video right now and come back when you do, because I'm about to spoil every one of them. Now, where was I? Oh yeah! Especially when, BAM! Black Cyclops appear! Not only is this a reference to Apollo Justice Ace Attorney, but it's a drastic improvement. Thanks to the cameo appearance of Pearl Fey, we actually learn why they appear, and we actually get to see them break. Not to mention, the last time we saw Black Cyclops, they were on the main antagonist of the game, so it's a good ploy to make Athena appear guilty of murder. Of course, if you've played the series so far, you already know there's no possible way Athena is the killer. This is because the entire premise alludes to the original game, where Miles Edgeworth believed that he had killed his father and that an innocent man was being blamed for the crime. Also in the original game, we eventually learn that Phoenix became a defense attorney in order to save Miles Edgeworth. Although the reasons are drastically different, in Dual Destinies, Athena becomes a defense attorney in order to save Simon Blackquill and clear his name. From what I can tell, there's only one reference to a Justice for All. Aura Blackquill holding people hostage to force a retrial for her brother is very much like how Shelley DeKiller held Maya Fey hostage in order to force Phoenix to defend Matt Engar. Now, if you're wondering why Aura hatched such a ridiculous plan, that's probably because Aura Blackwill's entire character is heavily inspired by Godot. Both are tragic characters whose downward spiral was initiated by the death of someone they loved. For Godot, this was Mia Fey, and as a result, Godot blamed Phoenix for her death. For Aura Blackquill, this was Athena Cykes. Although it's unclear how Métis felt about Aura, Aura was most certainly in love with her, and as a result, Aura blamed Athena for her death. Far more literally this time. Meanwhile, Simon Blackquill's actions are a reference to Rise from the Ashes specifically. If you recall, Lana Skye confessed to a crime she didn't commit in order to protect and save her sister Emma, who she believed had just committed a murder. This time, Simon confessed to a crime he didn't commit to save Athena's life after witnessing what he believed to be Athena killing her own mother. And because you can never have too many references to trials and tribulations, the true mastermind behind the entire murder has been in this courtroom the entire time, hiding behind someone else's identity, much like how Dahlia Hawthorne pretended to be her sister Iris. Not only that, but the true mastermind is responsible for framing Athena Cykes for murder, just like how Manfred von Karma framed Miles Edgeworth for a murder he committed. And of course, during the initial incident, young Miles Edgeworth accidentally shot Manfred von Karma, which led to Manfred's downfall in court. Likewise, young Athena Cykes managed to stab the true mastermind, causing some of his blood to end up on the Moonstone, leading to his downfall in court. It's almost like I accidentally forgot to talk about our detective for the series, Bobby Fulbright, who's really into justice. And that's because Bobby Fulbright is dead. The Bobby Fulbright that we meet in-game is actually the Phantom, a spy who has been impersonating him the whole time. Even though this is pretty much the only original twist that Dual Destinies brings to the table, it's a very good one, and quite unexpected, or at least for me it was. There's even a tiny hint to his identity way back in Case 2 when he's first introduced. The superstitious Jinxie looks at him and calls him a ghost. Eventually, after many cross-examinations, the Phantom is found guilty of murder thanks to Athena's earring. For a final case, this is definitely one of the better ones, but only because it combines almost every single awesome thing that we've seen in the series thus far. So if you've been playing along, you might find this a little repetitive. Now, there is one gigantic flaw in this game that literally does not even need to be there, and that would be the Dark Age of the Law. Supposedly, during the events of Dual Destinies,
These are dark times, where the law has been reduced to rubble, and it's up to us to restore it to its former glory.
even though nothing has really changed. The courtroom in Ace Attorney is, and always has been, hilariously biased against defendants because the whole point of Ace Attorney is to satirize the real-life Japanese judicial system. Yet, Dual Destinies would have you believe that everything was all fine and dandy until the Dark Age of the Law happened. And if that wasn't ridiculous enough, according to Miles Edgeworth, part of what caused this Dark Age of the Law was when a prosecutor was found guilty of murder. Yeah, because that's totally never happened before. Well, except for this guy. Or this guy. And hey, Edgeworth, did you forget that the plot of the original game centered around you, a prosecutor, getting accused of murder? Where was the Dark Age of the Law then? Overall, I like Dual Destinies for the same reason I like Final Fantasy IX. It takes all the tropes that the series has used, twists a few of them around, and mashes them all together. At its best, the puzzle pieces all fit together to tell a new variant on a story we've become familiar with. But as much as I appreciate the sheer number of references and how cleverly they're used, if you've played the series, you know it's going to happen from a mile away. Either way, the next game is going to have to bring something really different if the Ace Attorney series is to live on. And that's all for my analysis. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Since I don't have a recording device on my 3DS, special thanks for this episode goes to Z Slizer for providing all of the game footage. Check out his channel if you'd like to see Let's Plays of pretty much every Ace Attorney game in the series.